Hello, everybody. My name is Craig James. This is my first PechaKucha as well. Actually, the first one I've ever attended, and apparently I'm up in front of you talking. This is actually not my PechaKucha entirely. I did it in collaboration with my wife, Kimberly, who was talking earlier. I took the pictures, put it on a jump drive. She took the pictures, eliminated some, added some other ones, and then together we did the narrative. So it's not strictly me. Kimberly Baker's name should be here as well. Oh, don't be shy. Anyway, back in 2008, I was laid off my job as a mechanic at Air Canada. Being a mechanic, you're very restricted in what you can do when you fix planes. And my passion has always been to do something different. So I applied to the Civil Bay Shipyard School to do a cabinet making for boats course. I loaded up my sailboat with all my tools, and I headed over there. The Civil Bay Shipyard School was very liberal. Like, there was no curriculum. Here's some tools. Here's some wood. Go to work. Do whatever you want to do. Ask us any questions, then we'll answer any questions. So in the 14 weeks I was there, within 10 weeks, I had done everything I could think of. But the only thing I didn't like was that I could not stand up in the morning to put on my pants. My sailboat was like built for someone who's 5'6". So I told him I was going to take my chainsaw and cut the top off my boat. And he said, "No, okay. Well, sure, you're here to experiment. Let's give that a try. Go ahead and cut the top off your boat." So here's the what actually happened. This is 8 years later, and I've had 8 years of enjoying my boat with a axle cabin I can stand up into. It has lots of big open windows. The cabin itself is African mahogany. The cedar frames around are all yellow cedar. I mean, a teak sliding hatch. The actual drop boards, that was a packing crate. Came up from Brazil. You can actually look at it. You can see the nail holes, which I filled in. The water doesn't get in there. But anyway, this was the first big project I've done. And in the past 8 years, I've just been going back and working with wood as much as I can. To me, it just feels right. What I've gotten into lately is actually using reclaimed wood. This was some chairs that came with our house, and it's made out of teak. So I dug those out of the loft the other day, and I said, well, okay, I got to make something out of these pieces of teak. So I sent them to the planer, and I made up a box. After I did the cabinet for the boat, for the past 8 years, I've been looking at this. This is the inside of my boat. This is the actual cabinet I made, and this was the old boat, and in the middle was this hole. It's very frustrating to look at a hole for 7 years, but my New Year's resolution was to finish all these projects that I started but never finished. So finishing that hole was one of them, and this is what I made. Basically, I filled the bottom, and now I can throw stuff in there and covers the hole. I have a place for my cigarette lighter or my coffee cups or something like that. So that's just one example of how you can take old wood and make it into something new and fill holes at the same time. So my wife and I live on a float home, and we are used to seeing these logs in the river. The local wood around here is mostly fir, cedar, hemlock occasionally. But what I love about it is that these things that enclose them, they don't work so well. So the logs come out and I escape. When I was growing up, I always wanted to be relic. Yeah. Way back in Newfoundland, I wanted to move to the West Coast, own a float home, have a jet boat. Tow logs out, bother Nick that Donnie does, That's what I wanted to do. And lay around on the dock. Well, anyway, this is our float home now. As you can see, this wood here, this all came from the river. I tow it up, buck it up, and that's our firewood for the winter. My project last summer was we re-shingled the whole roof. This is what they're doing now. They're calling stump logging. So they go and take the old stumps, the last 8 feet they never used before. Now they haul them out and make cedar shingles for them. Now, I started off earlier this spring. There's a little project I did to make a canoe rack holder, or a canoe rack paddle holder. These two paddles actually came out of the river. This one I made. But what I got in benefit was that this is actually a beautiful wind chime. The wind starts blowing, they all start rattling. A neighbor hired me to build him a bar. They said, well, we want something wood that came out of the river. Well, all that wood is too wet. But one actually came down the river, a dock, and got hung up. I went and bucked it up, joined it up, put in some epoxy, and next you know, you have this bar. This is 7 years later. It got that beautiful color. The strata I live at needed a bookcase. So we all, between the 43 residents, scrummaged around our garages, and we came up with enough wood to build this. We didn't buy a single piece of wood. We bought the Lexan and the hinges, but it's one of those things that's getting my passion now is reusing wood. What I love about wood is that every piece of wood is different. There's softwoods, hardwoods, tropical woods, temperate woods. And what I've been trying to do lately is I don't use stains. When I finish it with a piece of wood, I just put some kind of an oil finish or natural finish and just let the natural color of the wood come out. This was a project. My New Year's resolution was to finish these 17 projects I started. This was one of them. For 5 years, this thing sat in a box on top of my shed. This is a folding on a Rondac chair. All this wood was actually, I didn't buy it. People gave me the wood and everything. And this is the chair now, just sitting outside our house. If I just finish the project and do the other second chair, my wife can sit with me, which will be nice. In the meantime, I sit alone and wonder when I'm going to finish the project. Let's hope it's not that long. One of my neighbors recently moved into their float home, and they have a brand new float home with an 80-year-old floor. This floor came from the University of British Columbia Auditorium. They lifted it up, they planed it down, and they relaid it in Barbara's house and put this beautiful finish onto it. And it just boggles your mind. Sometimes I do little jobs. Somehow I became the maker of the family urns. This one is actually for my wife's aunt's dog. I needed a little winter project, so I took this piece of cherry wood that came from their property. I got some dovetail joints, and in a couple of years, when this cherry really gets its color, it's going to be beautiful. And my last slide, this is a piece of what they call Polonia or kiri wood. It's a Japanese wood, 18 years old, and it's like 20 inches across the butt. In the early days when you were Japanese and you had a daughter, you would build the tree. When the daughter got married, they would make a bureau from it and give it to her as a present. Anyway, there's my quick talk about wood. Thank you very much.